Howdy, y'all. I'm Ondřej from Czech Republic, and I welcome you on my English channel Czech Tech, which is a version of my original Czech channel, which is Tesla Czech. I am trying to bring the content of Tesla world and electromobility and stuff like that to Tesla community in Czech language. So I'm trying to translate and comment videos from people like Sandy Munro and The Limiting Factor and others. And I have the privilege to be on a CES 2022 and meet with Cory and Sandy in person and had interview with them. So you will have now the opportunity to listen to the original version in English, not translated by me. But unfortunately, I have to apologize that there was issues with mics because there was so many wireless interference that unfortunately some of it is like broken. After that, I quickly purchased, or in fact, one of my Patreons bought me this DJI mics that has internal recordings, so it will not hopefully happen in the future. So once again, big apologize for the sound quality, but I hope that the information quality it's much more important. Without further ado, let's go to the interview. Thank you for your time today.
No problem.
So, hi all, this is Ondřej Bacina from Czech Republic, and I have here a special guest today, which is Cory Steuben, CEO, I can say?
President.
President, okay.
Yeah, Sandy is CEO of Munro Associates,
okay.
And I'm president. We've split the roles, so
Okay.
I handle the day-to-day operations, you know, all the financial aspects, the hiring, the firing, all the fun stuff. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So I was interested in your story because I have to say that we started almost the same. I started like 2018 with my channel, but it was like by my job, and then in 2020, which is like you started,
Yeah.
I started to do it like a main job. And I have to say that at the beginning it was like I saw exactly the same things that I did. Like you shot on the iPhone without the external microphone, so I can hear the echo. And
Yeah. That was a mistake, by the way. It was actually mic'd up, but it wasn't plugged.
Okay. And then you know the cameraman was like filming and not like fast enough for the B-rolls, and you didn't do the B-rolls as well as me, as the same as me. So I was like, I am happy that I'm not alone with that.
We've come a long way with our videography skills. So the first 30 to 50 episodes were strictly out of necessity. We were just filming to get the content and the word out there. We weren't worried about editing. We actually know sure that when we started filming and when we ended, the only thing we do would cut off a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end. No intro, no outro, no graphics, no visuals, nothing. And that's why I'd film Sandy when he was talking, and then I would go zoom in as he was doing the voice.
It was your filming at the beginning. Okay.
It was real bad at first, started to improve based on criticisms. So we'd watch our videos and people would criticize, like, oh, you're panning too quick, you're zooming in too close. When Sandy's talking, you should pan back to Sandy. So we kind of like a Ouija board, you know, all constructive criticisms got the company, got the filming to be a result of all the complaints. And then now the filming strategy has evolved to where we use an extensive amount of B-roll, lots of visuals, and now we're not, you know, really professional, but we're way better.
Well, yeah, you can tell. You now use a separate cameraman, editor, I think.
Yep.
Yes, you can recognize. And I was when I had the chat with Sandy, I just said that it was great when you finally decided to explain the stuff, because at the beginning, because you came from like experts from automotive, and lots of viewers are like me, like Tesla fans that are not that deep in automotive and use lots of acronyms. And and when I translated to Czech, I was like full time on Google. Like, what did they say? I try to think out what is it and try to study and so you push me way higher in the knowledge base and then you start to do it.
Yeah, now we require, when we have different personalities on camera, they know if they say an acronym, they have to define it the first time.
Exactly. That's perfect.
Every time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think that people have seen our other videos, so they would know what the acronym means. But on YouTube, somebody may be watching this video for the first time, so we must define the acronym. Really good point.
That was your learning curve, but what is it from the business perspective? So, do I get it right that it was your idea to?
So, success has many fathers, is something many people say. So, many different times in the history of Munro, people have proposed doing videos for various things, but I truly think there's a very important distinguishing factor. A lot of people had the idea, we did videos, but who actually did it? Who executed? So in March of 2020, the pandemic was coming, and I said, hey, I think we should do some videos on YouTube of our teardown of our Model Y. Because I noticed that Sandy would go on Autoline Detroit with John McElroy, and when Sandy would go on Autoline Detroit, he would get 500,000 to 700 views. And I told Sandy, I said, we should capture that for ourselves. So I bought the domain. I personally bought the domain Munro Live, my personal account.
Oh, okay.
I like Saturday Night Live, and the initial intent was to be near live, meaning following us around as we're tearing it down. Not everything. And I also bought the website, I created the store, and I created the Munro Live YouTube channel. Munro & Associates actually has another YouTube channel. Did you know that?
Yeah, I
called
think
Munro Associates,
Yes.
which has existed for 14 years. It has 400 subscribers and maybe 100,000 views, but the videos did not have the character and the energy that exists on Munro Live. Munro Live has a specific energy behind the people on camera, how we're explaining the parts and pieces. So the genesis of Munro Live was born out of the pandemic, and I pitched the idea to Sandy, and there was resistance at first. There was concerns about security, like, oh, is this secure? Us showing all the other things, and a lot of people were like, how are we going to be able to sell merchandise if we take people's credit card information? Well, I figured all that out, and I think in this last year we generated just shy of $1 million in ad revenue and merchandise sales.
Really?
Merchandise sales. That's what it is. So selling stickers, hats, cups, mugs, pieces of the car, the 4680 battery cells.
Well, that was not. I have to say.
Yeah, we do invest a lot of money, but we count all the revenue. And from it, we're profitable on everything. So if the car costs $70,000, we sell the battery cells for $400,000. So there's it's a big positive for us.
So very good business.
And now we're able to fly all over the world to film, and we're justifying it because we'll make upwards of $10,000 per hour of finished content. So if we fly to Italy and film for an hour at IDRA, which we did.
I saw that.
We filmed for an hour at IDRA. It cost us maybe $5,000 to fly to Italy, hotels and everything. We made more than that on the video, plus in the exposure and the reputation that people will now call us and say, oh, IDRA, can you tell us about castings? And then we get hundreds of thousands of dollars of engineering services because now we're growing our expertise and our level of knowledge because of the access we're getting.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's just a great thing for our business.
That's the advantage of having like a worldwide language.
Yeah.
And not a language that only 10 million people speak.
Yeah.
But so it is basically a dream come true because it's very successful. It's such a short time, I think.
Yeah. And I really appreciate what you do because you reached out early on and asked if we minded if you translated our content. We want to create our content to be consumed by the world. So we do not hoard our content. Some YouTubers and creators get really defensive about people content and doing commentary videos or reusing it for articles. We allow free use of our content. If someone wants to steal our video in China and play it 10 million times, I look at it as 10 million more people saw our Munro logo or Sandy or myself explaining how batteries work or something. It just perpetuates the marketing aspect of it. So we're kind of open source when it comes to using our content, as long as someone's not emulating us, creating an account that says that they are Munro Live and trying. But if you're representing yourself and using our content, feel free.
Actually, I got some few comments at the beginning, like I'm stealing or something. I said no, it's like I discuss it with them, and for them it's like advertisement. And by the way, Czech Republic is very heavy on automotive. I don't know if you know that, but So the thing is that actually before communism, in the First Republic, Czech Republic was a industry tiger in Europe. And unfortunately, communists come and destroy everything. But we still have a lots of industry. So we have Škoda, car company. Unfortunately, not in the US. So maybe you don't know them that much. And they are part of Volkswagen Group. But as well, we have lots of tier 2, tier 3, suppliers for the automotive, especially for the German automotive. And I have to say that I think that because of that, Czech Republic is one of the most conservative countries in Europe for EVs. It's like, I think my personal opinion is that because lots of the people know somebody that works at the automotive, like either tier 2 or supplier, and they're afraid what's coming. So they like say, it's bad, it's not functioning. And so, for example, Škoda did their first like mainstream car, Enyaq, which is come from the platform of ID4. And it is actually more successful than the ID4. They get more rewards, which is like not, you can imagine that the mother, like the Volkswagen Group, is not that happy. And the people inside Škoda, they said like, oh wow, people really like it and they want to buy it.
Yeah.
So it's like, so what do you think of the traditional auto looking at EVs? How is your feeling though?
I think that traditional internal combustion engine vehicles are profit centers for large organizations. And EVs are very expensive to manufacture, particularly because of the high cost of the batteries. And just the cost of a 60 to 100 kilowatt hour battery is more than the total production cost of a small four-door sedan. So if you look back to about 15 to 20 years ago, you could buy a Toyota Camry, a Dodge Dart, a little small vehicle. You could buy one for $16,000 to $20,000 US, and it would cost anywhere from $8,000 to $13,000 to manufacture. Now, just the batteries alone, at $100 per kilowatt hour, or $120 per kilowatt hour, the battery somewhere around $12,000 to $18,000. So because of that, you still have to build the car around it. So now the vehicles, the manufacturing costs are $21,000 to $35,000. So when we did our cost analysis on the Model 3, we estimated it cost $35,800 to manufacture. That was in ideal scenarios with a perfect supply chain, and Tesla was selling that vehicle for $50,000, which is a pretty healthy profit margin. So many of the large traditional OEMs rely on lower average transaction prices to get their volumes up, and EVs are still a low volume, high transaction price thing. So the companies that stand to benefit the most are the higher ends, Mercedes, BMW, because they don't rely on high volumes. They rely on medium to low volumes with high average transaction prices. So they'll be fine. So Volkswagen is the people's car. They rely on high volumes with a wide array of brands. So it hurts them the most for the transition because the profit margins will disappear or shrink on the lower end price points. That is my assessment. It's really going to hurt their volume side.
Yeah, you can see it in the financials that Volkswagen is like something between 5 to 7% annually, like their margin, and Tesla is like 30%.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. And if they start to do more EVs, their margin will go maybe negative if they will like. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is the Tesla approach of the pyramid, that you start with the higher end low volume car and then you need to go down. This is something that lots of the people didn't get it, and they like when it come the EV for 20, even less than 20,000. So what is your prediction when finally people will see the cars with lower price tags?
So lower price tags, it's an interesting thing because you have to understand what is the functional objective of an automobile. So what does a consumer need to qualify a vehicle to meet their minimum needs? So if the minimum needs are 100 or 400 mile range, the vehicle will be very difficult to be $20,000. But if you want a 40 kilowatt hour battery, maybe a 35 kilowatt hour battery, very small vehicle with two doors,
Like city driving.
with a steel frame, a steel suspension components, front wheel drive, very slow, maybe a 150 kilowatt power motor, cloth seats, not a lot of features, crank windows. You can make a vehicle for $20,000. But there's another thing that's happening in this world that drives costs into vehicles that's disassociated with the electrification. It's the safety requirements of Euro NCAP, IHS, and NHTSA. So the SORB test, oblique pull, roof crush is driving thousands of dollars of ultra high strength steel into B pillars and A pillars. It's driving thousands of dollars into the vehicles for airbags that deploy below the belt line to help combat FMVS 226 rollover ejection mitigation. These are a lot of the battles and requirements that we've been assessing over the years that are driving a lot of costs into vehicles for safety. And there was a huge push for fuel economy. It was driving costs, internal combustion engine vehicles. But now with electrification, there still remains all of those safety requirements.
But if you're saying that, wouldn't it be time to rethink that? Because maybe, you said rollover like requirements, but if you do the EVs right, you never roll over.
Yes. So it's ejection mitigation for SUVs. So in the United States, they assess how people die in car accidents, and first it was seatbelts. They put seatbelts in, and then they put pretensioners because they noticed even with seatbelts, people would still move forward. Then they've added multiple requirements, and then they realized that with the boom of SUVs in the United States, center of gravity rose. We have a lot of freeways, and if you go off the freeway, the vehicle will roll over. And yes, you are correct. EVs have low center of gravity, but at a high speed, 70, 80 miles an hour, if you fly off a road, even in an EV and the wheels dig, you will roll. I mean,
Yes.
have you ever seen a car crash at 80 or 100 miles an hour?
It can fly.
Fly.
Yeah.
It can fly. So these are very valuable requirements. So you asked a really good question. When will this change? I think there is a point in the far future, not in the near future, when autonomous driving capabilities, if they are prevalent enough, if your vehicle can only operate on the autonomous capabilities, they can remove the airbag for the rollover test. They can remove the need for stringent seat belts and structure requirement, because they know that if it's a fully autonomous vehicle, they can drive in controlled environments with other autonomous vehicles. You won't have drunk drivers. You won't have people speeding excessive speeds. You won't have cars running red lights. You won't have cars rolling off the freeway. Then you could make your vehicle out of balsa wood wrapped in aluminum. Like, it could be a very lightweight plastic panel structure.
What's his timeline for that? What is your guess?
That. I've actually been interviewed before by Barron's and CNBC, and I've made the same statement. My timeline for that is 35 to 50 years. You may see that in some controlled countries or environments that are very far advanced.
Okay, so it's very far in the future.
Yeah, and you already see reduced safety requirements for certain classifications of cars in Japan. They have their little I would call them B cars or K cars, where they're smaller and they're real little, and they have different license plates, and they're not allowed to go on the freeway at high speed, but they just they bop around town. Low speed vehicles in the United States that can only go 25 miles an hour have reduced safety requirements, seat belts or crush, because they only operate in different environments. So you already see that type of reduced safety and construction standards for cars that operate in limited environments. When will you see that for large automobiles? Maybe in my lifetime.
Okay. Regarding the cost, I think Tesla will have, they announced that they 1st of March, they will have some announcement that they will announce the third platform. Did you notice that? So what is your guess? So will it be one giant casting, like car in one cast?
Now, I'm going to say no, knowing that Sandy probably said yes. And I'll owe him another steak dinner. Did you ask the same question to Sandy?
No, because unfortunately, he had another appointment, and I instead of half hour, I have only 10 minutes, so I had the time to ask. But
so I'm gonna say no, because I still think the total length of a car at 12 to 18 feet is too long.
But what if they show some small car, like the 25K car? Isn't that like...
Maybe.
So you are open to that, but you don't think so?
You know what, I'm going to say eventually yes. Maybe not in this next iteration.
Okay. So, and what do you think what will be what is your guess that the third platform will have, like, revolutionary wise?
See, so Teslas are already very minimalistic inside. And ran across some engineers, and the elimination of the buttons. We thought that was like some, massive strategy that they make their car very futuristic. There was a cost savings aspect to that. They're trying to save money. Mm-hmm. It costs money to develop buttons and switches and have the same functionality in the screens. So eliminating them not only eliminated costs, but weight. So you already have a very simple interior on Teslas. My threshold for what's in it will the lower end Teslas still have the same autonomous capabilities? That will be amazing, because right now if you buy a low end Chevy Bolt, it's electric, but it doesn't have the thousands of dollars of autonomous cameras and sensors and processing power. And these are things that why people, if you buy a futuristic car, it's electric and it has LIDAR and radar and cameras and autonomous capabilities. You can have an electric car without all, and you'd save a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure.
So if I were a low-cost OEM, I'd have a basic electric car without any of those features. But I think Tesla will still always keep those features, which will add cost to the vehicle. And something I think people need to remember. I had lunch today here at CES, and it was $40 US. 40. I got 2 waters, one for lunch and one for later. And I got chicken sandwiches to eat the chicken breast, the sandwich, and not the buns. Each sandwich was $15. It's $30 for the sandwiches and $5 for the buns. Inflation is real. So we're stuck on this $20,000 number, but what people need to remember is, do you make the same amount of money now that you did 20 years ago? I know I make way more money, not because I progressed in my career, but if you look at entry-level jobs in the United States, it's $15 to $20 US an hour. When I was an entry-level worker in 2001, I made $5 to $7 an hour. So the idea of a $20,000 car, it needs to be a $30,000 car. With the level of inflation in the world and the interest rates, $30,000 is the new $20,000.
Yeah. It's a very good point, actually. And people used to, for example, the technology-wise, like the technology in general, it's developing such a high speed that if the product is, let's say, saturated, then you, even through the inflation, the company is capable of keeping it on the same price. And people didn't realize that actually keeping on the same price, it's actually each year cheaper and cheaper because the inflation is going high. So yeah, this is a good point.
Yeah, and even iPhones have come down in price. If you look at the inflationary, the inflation around the world, phones are actually going down in relative price. I saw this. They were saying, food is more expensive, energy is on par, more expensive, But phones and TVs are lower cost, cheaper than inflation, because when I bought an iPhone 11 Pro, it was $1,200. When I bought an iPhone 12 Pro, it was $1,200. When I bought an iPhone 13 Pro, it was $1,100. When I bought my 14 Pro, it was $1,100. And each phone I bought got more and more features, better cameras. So not only is my product getting better, the price was going down when really I should be paying $1,400 or $1,500 US dollars for an iPhone 14 Pro, not factoring in the higher capabilities. So I find it amazing. We're sitting here and you're filming with an iPhone 14 Pro. 13 Pro.
Yeah.
And some technologies are going down in cost. Automobiles are too complex and have too many parts to beat the inflationary curve. And at best case, they stay with the inflationary curve. So this $25,000, $20,000 number, we need to start seeing $30,000 number, or at least factoring in what a $20,000 car would have cost 10 years ago. It'd be $28,000.
Yeah, and as well, people keep forgetting that the EVs are, lasting longer. They have less parts. They have less service maintenance. So it's like it's about the OPEX rather than CAPEX.
They have less moving parts.
Oh, okay.
They have more parts.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Like electronic parts as well.
Yeah, well, so this is you didn't ask the question. This is one of my favorite conversations. A lot of people say, well, EVs have less parts. Think of a battery for a Tesla Model Y. 4,416 cells. But what is a part? So if you think of the definition of a part, battery cells are actually sub-assemblies of many parts. You have the can, you have the separator, you have the anode, you have the cathode, you have a gasket, seal, you have your contactor, you have your tabs.
Oh, right.
It's about 10 to 15 parts. So now,
and then you have to connect it.
Each one is connected twice. So just the wire bars for every cell and the parts in every cell, it's about 20 parts. 20 times 4,416. What is that, 100,000? No.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. A lot. A million? No, yeah, so 10 times that would be 50,000. So 20, yeah. And then, beyond that, now your motor. How many laminates are in the rotor? About 500.
Okay.
Not only you have 500 laminates, in a plaid you have 500 laminates, and then you have sections of 6 with 500 other pieces. So 6 times 500, 3,000 small, little tiny triangle laminates. Then you have the magnets, 60 magnets. Then you have the winding, the end caps, the rotor. Then you have the ball bearings. The ball bearings have 7 balls, 2 cages. If you start to add up all the discrete parts, it's in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of parts. Then you look at the circuit boards, all the chips on the circuit board, way more circuit boards in an EV than an internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the analogous parts on an internal combustion engine vehicle, the fuel tank is equivalent to the battery. That's a blow molded part with a fuel pump and some lines and hoses, maybe 1,000 parts for everything, not 100,000.
Wow.
Wow. A lot of people will say, oh, less parts. Very careful. Way more parts. Yeah. Less moving parts.
Yeah. That's a very good.
Yeah, I love that conversation.
Yeah, that's. I thank you for reminding me that, because. How do you look at the ADS, the autonomous driving part? Because when I walk here, here are tons of companies that's showing something we have. So how do you look at the Tesla approach, like camera only, and everybody else approach, like all the sensors?
Yeah, I think LIDAR and radar are important for edge cases, particularly seen in the dark and in the snow. Radar is important to have correlation between what the vision sees and then what the radar senses. And I don't want to make any sort of monumental statements, because I've driven Rivian, I've driven Blue Cruise, I've ridden in FSD Beta, version 8, version 10, I have all these different versions. And the most confident I've ever seen in EV vehicle drive with ADAS capability was in John from Silicon Valley, John who runs Silicon Valley Tech. Club. His Model X, I rode in an early version of FSD Beta, and it was incredible. It was aggressive. It took a 6-way intersection like a champ. It sped up, changed lanes, got over. And I think now the software that's released to the public is less aggressive for Tesla. But I know deep down inside that aggressiveness can be tuned up. Yes. And I think it's been pacified. So software is one of those things where you learn to protect yourself, and some ADAS the cameras and the sensors are less valuable than the software and the data set that drives the decision making. So I think too many people get hung up on the vision systems and whatnot, but I think processing power on board plus the data pool and software to make the decisions, that's the most important.
Yeah. And it's the future, like when the EVs are starting to be more very often I get a question how the energy grid will like take the load and we get but on the other hand you have a car that have like as you said 50 to 100 kilowatt hour pack. Basically, percentage-wise, you drive like 20 miles on average. So basically, you are taking with you very big chunk of battery. So my assumption is that if we start to use that, for example, level the load of the energy system, then now suddenly the acquisition price of the car looks different because you buy two products in once. You buy a car and you buy a transition battery. So what is your thought about vehicle to grid, vehicle to load, and when do you see it coming?
I think vehicle to grid is important in certain areas of the world that struggle with peak power problems. But I've lived in Nebraska and Michigan and never had any problems with high energy demand loads, particularly in winter or summer. I think vehicle to grid makes more sense to start with higher capacity vehicles, garbage trucks and buses.
Okay.
So there are already some school bus fleets that are used certain times of the day, but they're not used at night and or in the evenings to typically drive kids to school. And the battery packs are much larger, and they have a better contributionary effect to the grid because you may be dealing with a 500 kilowatt hour battery pack, and then you have a fleet of 100 buses for a school system. Now you're talking the energy needed for a peaker plant.
Well, it's like virtual plant, yeah.
But cars with 30 to 100 kilowatt hours on a fragmented system, they're less likely to contribute to the same level that you would for fleets of municipal buses, school buses, garbage trucks, dump trucks, construction equipment that could contribute in a significant way. And so I think we should actually start with the larger infrastructure pieces.
Makes sense.
And then the vehicle to grid for consumers would be more emergency situations to run your own house in an emergency situation. Or if for some reason you had to do rolling blackouts, then 60 or 80% of your consumers would be able to power their own homes if they lost power. That would be the best way for them to contribute versus to actually contribute to the grid as a whole.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for your content.
Yeah, it's the least we could do. I'm glad you and your fans enjoy our content, and as always, you're able to use anything we produce and translate it for us so your viewers can get some enjoyment out of it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Stay energized. Okay, so I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please like and possibly subscribe, because I have another interview with Sandy Munro, which will be later. So you don't miss it. Subscribe and you will get notification. And if you would like to support my efforts in reaching the informations in the Czech Republic, please consider support me on my Patreon page. The link will be below. Thank you very much again for your time, and see you next time. Stay energized.